warned you about his criminal past. It was a lie. James Cagney played strong guys after being pressured into acting. In real life, he was a dancer. Despite numerous near-fatalities, Warner Brothers insisted that he utilize real bullets in his films. Cagney will be remembered in that manner. You have no idea. Reference as an influential figure in the entertainment industry. Cagney, James. They escorted him to the Oval Office in the last stages so he could receive the Presidential Medal of Freedom from a longtime friend. Worse yet, in his last years, he was kept from visiting his own children by a group of unknown carers. A broken heart, he never got to say farewell to his son before he died. For 80 years, Hollywood battled to conceal this horrible truth. To James Cagney came the year 1899, on Manhattan's unpaved eastern side. Living on the streets was difficult for him and his destitute family. James became known as one of the top street fighters in his neighborhood. By the time he was 14 years old, the tenacity James would need was unintentionally passed down by his father, who had been a barman and amateur fighter. Two of his younger siblings died as infants because of the filth and overcrowding in their little home. Carolyn, though, was a very strict and determined mother to Cagney. She instilled in her children the values of hard work and remaining out of trouble. Later in life, James credited her with keeping him out of prison and off the streets, as had happened to several of his childhood buddies. After that, in 1918, the Spanish flu hit. The family was greatly affected by the disease. Choke. Cagney's dad passed away at 42 years old. It was just 19 when James was born. Was a first-year student at Columbia University. He aspired to become a military officer and pursue an art degree. However, he had to drop out of school to take care of his mother and 4 siblings after their father passed away. A newborn infant was among them. That duty altered the course of events. Immersed in his task, he never turned around. He had had a challenging upbringing. His health had also taken a hit. He continued on despite his short stature and frequent illness, which were consequences of his poor diet. He became an amateur boxing champion after taking up the sport. In the ring, he was lightning quick and so sharp that he finished second for the lightweight title in New York State. His mum disapproved, despite the coach's insistence that he became professional. She was afraid she would lose another relative if he continued boxing. He continued to be active nevertheless, going on wild dance parties and fighting when the situation calls for it. He was destined to become famous for his graceful yet tenacious personality. His abilities extended well beyond the arena. His father had passed away just before he was set to attend Columbia University to major in painting. He enrolled in German classes while serving in the Student Army Training Corps. However, his life changed course once he dropped out, but his early appreciation for the arts never faded. In the years that followed, he would resume painting and subtly amass an art collection. For the remainder of his life, he often sacrificed his aspirations in order to provide for his family. He labored continuously in order to exist. He worked his way up the ladder and was a book custodian, night doorman, janitor, copyboy, and porter at the New York Public Library. He gained knowledge in almost every area. He dabbled in technical drawing and architecture as well, but his mother and siblings always received his earnings, regardless of his profession. He hoarded not a single penny. In hindsight, he regarded it as the most beneficial event in his life. The hardship he endured fortified him and illuminated his path through life. Unexpected events occurred in 1919. Someone at work saw that he had dancing skills and informed him about an audition. Men costumed as ladies were performing in a theater production. The Peabody was his sole dance repertoire, and he was flawless in it. The producers were so pleased that he was hired immediately. The $35 weekly payment seemed like a fortune at the time. Clad in wigs, makeup, and feathers, Cagney had an unusual sense of liberation. Despite Hollywood's best efforts to obscure the fact, It was his debut on-stage performance. Cagney had been dancing on the streets for a long time before that. He constructed temporary stages out of the slanted basement doors of city buildings. He was known as Cellar Door Cagney because of the way his feet tapped on the wood. If someone tried to hurt his sibling, he would dance for a while before turning around and fighting. His enchantment on screen would eventually incorporate that peculiar combination of dancer and fighter. From those formative years, one incident stood out. Just before a pantomime performance, his brother had fallen ill. Cagney stepped forward as a volunteer, as no one else would. He was only an extra, but he had watched the entire thing and memorized every phrase and motion. His performance was flawless. Florence James, the director, was astounded. He had never been on stage before, and he was able to seize a fresh opportunity. After that, he dove headfirst into the theater. He was hands-on in every way. He understudied for larger parts, clothed the stars, and handled their bags. Despite landing prominent roles and earning larger salaries, he never stopped lending a hand behind the scenes. As far as he was concerned, no task was beneath him. His bright mind, dependability, and respect were all products of his practical expertise. Perhaps the finest actor to ever step into a camera lens was what Orson Welles would later refer to him as, and he fell head over heels for someone he met on his journey. Meeting a young woman named Frances Willard Vernon in 1920, Cagney was working in a Broadway production called Pitter Patter. Billy was her nickname. Like everyone else, she sang in the chorus. In 1922, they tied the knot and remained married for an astounding 64 years until his passing in 1986. Such an occurrence was practically unknown in Hollywood. Many claimed he was completely honest. On one occasion only, he remained faithful to her, even when temptation beckoned. They eventually found peace and quiet on a farm in New York after adopting 2 children. While he became famous, she remained at his side and stopped performing. Accomplished more in their careers than anyone else. It was never James Cagney's intention to become the most famous gangster in Hollywood. It was actually not his intention to play the starring role in 1931's The Public Enemy. Edward Woods, another actor, was cast in that part. The real hero was the actor, not Cagney. Something, though, shifted. William Wellman, the director, spotted talent in Jimmy Cagney. An authentic, unfiltered experience. He embodied the character's necessary harsh New York edge. So, Wellman made a daring move and switched roles right before filming started. When Cagney was cast as the lead, the whole situation altered. Upon its release, the picture was a smashing success. Cagney was the center of attention. It wasn't for show. He was the mafia boss. He shot to fame in an instant. The part he was about to pass up ended up being his breakthrough role. Legendary status has been bestowed upon one sequence from that film. It features Cagney slamming a grapefruit on Mae Clarke, who plays his co-star. People continue to bring it up even now. Whoever came up with the notion is a topic of heated debate. The director or producer is the one who was blamed, according to some. Some claim it was based on a true story of a gangster who allegedly tossed food at his fiancée. It was Mae Clarke's version. According to her, they initially attempted tossing the grapefruit across the room, but it failed as well. After that, the director and Cagney wanted to know if she would mind if he shoved it in her face. If they could do it in one go, she would agree. And it was effective. The crowds went into shock. Apparently, Clarke's ex-husband loved the sequence so much that he watched the movie multiple times simply to chuckle at that part. Cagney played more than simply a villain. He succeeded in making you sympathize with the antagonist. That was an unprecedented occurrence. He changed the way villains in films were portrayed. However, they inherited Cagney's charisma, humor, and even a perverse courage. His detractors noted that viewers were confused about whether to root for him or despised him. He was referred to as a cavalier of the gutters, a hero of the back alleys, by one. Some even went so far as to say he made gang rules sound cool. No matter how you feel about it, that altered the course of cinematic history. It was no longer necessary for villains to be monstrous after Cagney. They may be multifaceted and potentially sentient. And now for the catch. The James Cagney portrayed on screen was an imposter. His inner self was reserved and contemplative, with a background in theater and dance. Originally, he wasn't even trained to fight. He was only a singer and dancer. It was irrelevant to the studio, though. Warner Brothers believed the gangster image would help sell tickets. Even in his comedic parts, they persisted in pushing it. People began to believe he was just as rough in real life as he appeared on screen. Even theater proprietors claimed that no one wanted to see Jimmy Cagney get beaten up. They wanted him to be the one to hit them. The real man, though, wasn't always a fan of being stereotyped as harsh. Never one to hold back, Cagney spoke his mind. While he was at the pinnacle of his career in 1935, he did something that very few actors dared to do. Warren filed a lawsuit against Warner Brothers. He was having none of it when they tried to get him to make more films than his contract would allow. Money was not the issue here. It all came down to respect. He was taking a huge chance. Crossing the studio floor was a career-ending offense in those days. However, Cagney remained steadfast. His victory was sealed. The studio structure was shattered, and actors learnt they could stand up for themselves after that triumph. Still further, he proceeded. After his time at Warner Brothers came to an end, he joined on with Grand National Pictures, a small independent studio. It was an enormous risk. He was banned by major studios. Even before he called, some producers would ignore him. However, Cagney was a firm believer in doing things independently. He secured an arrangement that granted him complete authority, a substantial salary, and a portion of the earnings. The Hollywood system was getting to James Cagney. Money, power, and hard hours were the main points of their long-running feud with Warner Brothers. Even though he was a major celebrity for them, they handled him as if he weren't important. He had enough after the 1942 smash hit, Yankee Doodle Dandy. He and his brother William also established their business that year. Cagney Productions was the name they gave it. It was an audacious step. He consequently consented. Despite being his first feature in 20 years, he ultimately died during filming it. He was already in a wheelchair when he made an appearance in a TV movie. However, ragtime provided him with his last opportunity to shine. Quietness followed a boisterous career. Cagney was rather private about his political views throughout his life. He became involved with causes in the 1930s without understanding their connection to communism. His shift towards conservatism came later in life, although he never made the change public. He refrained from attending extravagant parties or leading a life of excess. According to Orson Welles, Cagney was never a clubgoer. Staying out of sight was his preference, yet Cagney was impossible to miss on screen. According to Welles, he was arguably the best actor to ever step in front of the camera. There was more to it than that. Cagney disregarded every regulation.